How are you doing? This is Martin from Gardens for Life again. So we're having our fourth questions and answers session. This time it's all about herbal remedies and or even medicinal herbs or plants. And how would you prepare a remedy itself, like tinctures or infusions or tea, as you call them, and oils as well. So we got a number of questions. Before we get to those, I've got a couple of announcements to make real quick. We have a new microphone now, as you can see here. I'm sure you can at this point. So our audio quality has certainly not been suffering lately anyway, at least since the last video of the seed swap, as you probably noticed the difference. The seed swap we're organising is actually on in the Midlands of Ireland, near Roscommon town. It's Knockcrockery, a small village, and it's on the 22nd of March 2020, and about 12 noon is when we're starting it. You can bring your seeds and you can swap them for other seeds, or even just come in for a chat about gardening. And if you'd like to pick up seeds too, and if you don't, even if you don't have any seeds, that's okay. You can just make a small donation as well. But if you want more details, I'll put a link in the description below. And the other thing we're doing is we're actually doing a free seed giveaway raffle, which is actually happening tomorrow on the 1st of March. What we'll do is we'll just extend it slightly to the 3rd of March, about 8 p.m. GMT. We'll just give people a chance to catch up, because we only made one announcement about it, and it was actually with our long seed video of all the plants that we're growing and showing you all the seeds and cuttings and everything that we've got this year. And so if you'd like to enter the free seed giveaway raffle, I'll also put a link for that in the description below. And we even have a separate video if you'd like to see what kind of plants we're growing this year and why we're growing them too. I mean, I would have been given plenty of reasons for all the different seeds that we've got and that we've got bought in. So that's all the announcements. And just before we get into the questions about herbal medicine and medicinal herbs and everything else, I'd like to say one thing about it, that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, and I'm not an expert on these things. We are only basing the information that we're giving you on our own experience that we've made over the years. And we also have been using a number of books that I'll actually show you in the video. I actually don't have it with me here now. I'm in the studio, and I left the books in the house. I'll show them to you after a short while now. So the first question I have here is from PJ. Let me see here. He's asking, what herbs or foods can I use to aid digestion? Well, I actually wasn't sure how to answer that question until we visited PJ last weekend, and I brought him some yacons, and for everybody there to try. Yacon tubers actually contain inulin, and in fact that is the answer. Any fruit or vegetable or even tuber that contains inulin, if you think of inulin as a starch, a complex carbohydrate that the digestive system cannot digest, but it's really good food for the bacteria in your stomach and in the rest of your digestive system, and it acts as a probiotic. Inulin is contained in yacon tubers. It's in small quantities. It's actually really good for you, and in large quantities it causes digestive troubles in the form of gas, basically. And Jerusalem artichokes contain a lot of inulin, unless you harvest them later in the winter, and that's why they're also known as fartichoke. But anyway, inulin is one thing that you can use as a probiotic and therefore help your digestive function. You can also use fennel leaves or fennel seeds, for that matter, make an infusion, as in a tea, and simply drink it for digestive discomfort. Eamon asked, what difference is there between a herbal infusion or tea, tinctures and oils? Well, it's very simple. A herbal infusion is hot water poured over into the herb itself and letting it cool down, or at least leaving it to steep for long enough for the water to extract all of the goodness from the herbs or the active ingredients. Ideally, in a 1 liter pot, like a teapot, we add a lot of herbs and we leave it to steep for an awful long time, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes even, and the tea is still fairly hot at that, and you can just drink it. I don't actually mind. Some teas can be made without hot water, and it's even beneficial. You can leave it overnight for 12 hours and drink the tea cold the next day, and it actually really helps. It makes an awful difference. You would have extracted a lot of the goodness from the plants, but what we like to do, as I said, is a normal tea with hot water and just leave it steeping for a long time. If it's just a cup, 5 to 10 minutes, and if it's a teapot, like a 1 liter teapot, it's about 20 minutes or so would be ideal. Tinctures are simply the extraction of the active ingredients from the herbs for using alcohol, and you leave it for about 6 weeks, and you shake it maybe once every few days to make sure that, and always cover the herbs in enough alcohol so that the herb itself is not exposed to the air, so that it doesn't become moldy. So that's all there is to it really for making tinctures, and you filter it then after 6 weeks. The shelf life is about 1 to 2 years depending on the alcohol content. We use vodka usually, or gin, because it's cheap. You can use other alcohols that are especially made for that purpose, like 60 or 70% pure. But you can also use an alternative for alcohol to make tinctures. I forget it now. I've just put it in afterwards, just as text here. Tinctures are actually useful for other purposes, to extract other chemicals from the herbs than an infusion, and same as oils. Oils are actually a little different in that you can use tinctures for the likes of echinacea or valerian and that kind of thing, but oils, you can use those to extract, to make a garlic oil, for example, which can act as a disinfectant and it's antibiotic. It actually can kill bacteria, bacterial infections, especially in your ears. If you have an ear infection, garlic oil is really effective. But also, of course, there is great mullein oil. The flowers of the great mullein, the yellow flowers, are make for the best earache remedy. But if you mix it with some garlic oil and you warm it up, and you just warm up a teaspoon worth, and you put it in your ear, just a drop, and just let it sink in, your earache is essentially instantly soothed, I should say. So so basically it's just different methods. Tinctures, oils, and infusions are just different methods of extracting the active constituents from herbs. Different methods for different ways, and you can also sometimes extract different chemicals from the herb depending on which ones are water soluble or soluble in alcohol or oil. Somebody on Facebook asked us what plants can be used to boost the immune system. Well, that's quite a simple one. Boosting the immune system is one that you don't want to do all the time, because you want your immune system to have a rest as well. But echinacea is the main plant that you can use for the purpose, and it's also widely available as a tincture and as tablets in the pharmacies around the country. And you can also make your own tincture, or tea for that matter. You can buy the herb itself as a tea and just drink it, but it actually, I find that it helps for different purposes. To activate the immune system, the tincture actually makes the biggest difference, and it's about 20 drops 5 times a day. That's the kind of quantity you want to be taking, so quite a high dose, but it activates the immune system and turns quickly, and it turns a 2-week flu into a 3-day one. Start taking echinacea early on when that happens, and you're actually not going to see a lot of the symptoms that you would normally occur, like for example fever as well. by the way, fever can actually be reduced by cold herbs such as peppermint. But there's a reason why the body creates a fever in order to expel the illness. So boosting the immune system can also be done with mushrooms as well. You can use, for example, turkey tail is a native mushroom. It's a woody mushroom that grows wild in the forests. We even did some mushroom logs of turkey tail. I'll show you a picture here. And you can use that. We haven't used it ourselves now, but you can use that to make a tea and drink it. It's probably quite bitter, like a lot of the mushrooms, especially the medicinal ones. But it'll activate the immune system too, and it'll do a lot of things for you, even with some serious illnesses as well. But Paul Stamets is the world leading mycologist. He did a lot more research than that on those mushrooms anyway. Another one we find, a really good one, is to basically regulate the immune system rather than boosting it. It's lion's mane mushroom is another one that actually really helps with that. And it just gives the immune system something to work with. Same as any other food that you would eat, and the body takes it in and basically uses it for what it needs, like minerals, for example, or vitamins. And it's the same thing as herbal or herbs that have certain chemicals in them as well. So Patricia asked, are there any herbal remedies that can only be taken on a day or cannot be taken on a daily basis, and which ones can be taken every day? That's a good question. There's two different kinds of herbs in Chinese medicine, as far as I know, or as far as I heard. And one of them is the tonic herbs, which is the kind of herbs that give you a boost and that give you basically health on a daily basis. You can basically not overdose on them, but you can take them every day, and they'll actually accumulatively help you with your various body functions in that preventing disease from the get-go. And that's the whole idea. When you're eating good food, you don't even get sick in the first place. Well, if you're lucky. But at the same time, if you give the body what it needs, the body will be a healthy one if you don't eat so many of the carbohydrates that are widely available nowadays, such as sugar, which I'm a big fan of. But the herbs you don't want to take on a daily basis are any of the herbs that are for certain conditions or that are boosting the immune system. Like I said, echinacea is one that is not recommended to be taken for more than 5 days or so, or a week. And a lot of these herbs, you don't want to be taking these. There isn't that many of these kind of herbs, but you don't want to overdo it on the immune system. You need to give the immune system time to replenish itself and recover and give it a rest as well. The herbs you can take daily, there's a lot of those herbs. Basically, any of the Mediterranean culinary herbs that we know of, such as thyme, rosemary, sage, marjoram is another one, and oregano. All those kind of common herbs that we all know of as culinary herbs that are for sale in the supermarket vegetable section just to add flavor to your cooking. In reality, they are actually highly medicinal, and they can help you out a lot if you eat them on a daily basis. And if you can manage to add them into your meals, please do, because it'll make a big difference in preventing disease and illness as well. But any tonic herb is basically just a food, and it's not really it may be medicinal, but it's not strictly a medicinal herb that can only be taken for certain conditions. But it's mostly, I'd like to see a tonic herb as a food, basically. Even lion's mane mushroom can be taken every day, if you like, and it's not going to do any harm to you at all. Like a lot of the other mushrooms and kitchen herbs as well. Shiitake mushrooms are actually also very good for the immune system. I never mentioned that one earlier. they're actually taken. Shiitake mushrooms are just as a common mushroom that's being eaten every day in Asia, just like the button mushroom over here. And people are fairly healthy over there. I guess we should take an example of that. Next question. Jerry's asking, what herbs can be used for congested lung or congested lungs? Well, a lot of people are suffering from all kinds of different lung conditions, such as asthma even, and all kinds of congestions and inflammations and lung infections. So the best thing to take for the lungs in order to clear them out is you can take great mullein leaves in the first year. The leaves in the first year from the plant are more potent than after in the second year when it has sent up the flowering stalk. So great mullein leaves, and you make an infusion from those, or tea. And you can also take echinacea, but the whole plant, and just drink it as a tea. And that really helps to clear out the lungs. But there was actually a really good combination that we used, not only to clear your throat, which is sage and sage, rosemary, thyme in particular. Thyme is a lung herb, is definitely a bronchial herb, and you can also use oregano as well. It'll make a strong tea and drink lots of it. The sage and the oregano will help to clear the throat, and rosemary and the thyme, and of course the great mullein leaves will help to clear out the lungs, same as the echinacea whole plant tea. Oh yeah, and if you have a rough throat and it's very dry or even just irritating, you can also take a tea of marshmallow leaves. They're really soft. If you ever feel marshmallow leaves, they have mucilage in them, and it's very soothing to the throat. So we also add that into that particular tea mix. Another question that came in was, what part of a plant contains the most active constituents? Actually, that's a good point, because a lot of the echinacea tincture is made with the root of the echinacea flower or plant. By the way, echinacea is also known as purple coneflower, which is what people grow in the garden just as an ornamental plant, and it's a beautiful plant, really beneficial for the insects because you see them all over it. And we've grown some. We've also got some white ones as well. Well, the purple ones are the original ones anyway. Not sure of the medicinal benefit of the white ones, but the roots, generally speaking, have the highest concentration of active constituents, but research has actually shown that, and I've heard this from a few different reputable herbalists and a few different sources, that the whole plant, the plant as a whole, as in you have the flower on the top, the leaves, the stems even, and the roots combined together have a greater effect in curing your illness or disease than if you just take the roots. There's actually other things in the plant, other parts of the plant that we don't even understand yet. Science only has a tiny picture of how the body actually implements and uses all of the constituents in plants. In fact, we only know a small fraction of them, and it has been proven, and including actually old medicine, not just Chinese medicine, but also medicine from before modern times. People always used to, especially the native and like native cultures basically, and villagers even, used to use the whole plant rather than using just one part of a plant to make a remedy basically. Another question is, what native medicinal mushrooms are there and how do you identify them? And the best advice I can give you about how to identify mushrooms is you have to learn about them, and you need to go on a forage walk with a local expert. Bill O'Shea is actually one of those. He's from Wicklow, and he does organise actual forage walks in September and October every year. So I would go on a forage walk and learn a lot more about mushrooms before you can identify those as being the correct ones to take, because some are dangerous. What mushrooms are we growing, and how do we process them? Well, we're not growing a whole lot of them at the moment. We do have some shiitake logs and some lion's mane logs, which were not successful. Actually, they dried out. We set those up 2 years ago, and they dried out last year in the drought. And we have had some success with the turkey tail logs, which you saw earlier in the video. And those, you can actually break those off or cut them off the wood and dry them. We have dried those before, and you can keep them in a jar basically forever, and they'll always be medicinal. You can just, or they'll never lose their potency, I don't think, because once they're dry, they're preserved basically for years to come. Processing them, the only thing you can do really with medicinal mushrooms is drying them and then soaking them in hot water to extract the active constituents, basically making a tea. And if it's alcohol, even better. You should actually dry your berries or herbs or mushrooms before you add them to a tincture made from alcohol or glycerin. Because you won't have any chance of, or much less chance of any mold developing. And Kate from West Country Willows asked, she'd like to know herbs for teas and cooking, like which ones to grow. What are the best ones to grow year round in the Irish environment, and best way to dry them? Let me see here. Yeah, so I reckon mint is one of those plants that you can never have enough of. Some for culinary reasons, purposes, such as the Moroccan mint is a lovely flavour, but you have other mints, spearmint also, and Egyptian mint, which are some of the ones we have. You can also grow, what's the name of it now? Iced tea, or lemon balm actually is another one that can be used for medicinal purposes, but also as a propellant, is that the right word? Repellent for the flies or insects in the summer. You simply rub it on your neck, or put a little twig, roll the twig, and put a couple of them up on your ears. It might look funny, but when you have loads of flies around you in the summer in the garden, you'll be happy to that'll actually get rid of them. You can also grow, of course, medicinal herbs. You're talking peppermint, reduces fevers, rosemary, and thyme, and sage, and even oregano. We have a supply of in our own gardens, which are mulched with wood chips, basically all year round, even when it's not fresh, and it's still, there is plenty of greenery, and the herbs are still very much so usable and have the full flavour almost in the winter time. And we find that what you can do, if it's a cold winter, obviously the leaves will fall off the plants if they're not cold hardy, and that's okay, they're just deciduous. But you can just dry them, pick them in late summer whenever they're at their peak, basically cut them off with a scissors and bunch them up, and simply tie the stems together with a bit of line or a bit of cord, and just hang it up somewhere reasonably warm, not too warm, not over stove, because you want to dry herbs slowly. You want to make sure that they do not lose all of their volatile oils by evaporation. That's why you want to dry them very slowly over a period of 3 or 4 weeks in a dry place, but not too warm of a place, such as any room in the house other than the room that you have your stove in. So, last question for today. What herbs or plants can be used to help with acid reflux? That's a good question. The short answer is I actually don't know of any. All I know is baking powder, you just dissolve it in water, or sodium, what's it called? I forget the name of it now. Either way, baking powder is ideal for that purpose, and that's what's actually in Rennie, the commercial product. So you just put a small bit of it into a glass of water and drink it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll just have our next session in the next week or two for the questions and answers. And I thank you very much again for watching, and please give us some questions for the next session on homesteading, basically cooking, preserving, storing food and medicinal herbs, brewing country wines as well, and making cordials and all of that type of stuff. Everything you see on our website, basically. So it's all about the kitchen next session. Thanks a million. Thanks for watching again. Bye bye.